Hello, my friend, and welcome to the Accountable Podcast. I'm so glad you're here. And today's episode is really inspired by none other than Taylor Swift. She said something recently on the New Heights podcast that when I was listening to it, I was on a walk, and I stopped and put it into a note in my phone because I knew I wanted to come back to it. Fast forward a few days later, the thing has gone viral. So chances are you know exactly what I'm about to talk about. But the thing is that it really hit us hard. And this is what Taylor said. Taylor said, you should think of your energy as if it's expensive, as if it's a luxury item. Not everyone can afford it. Just let that sink in. If you're like me, you'll have to go back and listen to her say it because it's way more powerful, of course. But the thing is that I think that this resonated so strongly because we needed to hear it. We pour out our energy so much in so many different areas of our life, and we have to really reframe how we're thinking about it. We need to think about it as a luxury item, like very exclusive, very, very valuable, because chances are we're not thinking of it like that, and carefully allocated. And what I wanted to think about today was not just our energy in terms of who we're giving it to, but I wanted to also take it one step further and say, what are we giving it to? Because chances are you're giving your attention and your energy to projects in your business or in your life, to things that aren't necessarily the right things, if that makes sense. It's the looking at it as the luxury item, you kind of think about it in a different way. And so when we think about this idea of like, how are we allocating our energy? I see this all the time. I see it in my life if I'm not careful. I see it in my clients' lives all the time because that's what they pay me to do. They pay me to look at what they're doing in terms of task. I'm not micromanaging anyone, but we're really looking at, okay, what's on your plate right now and what needs to be on your plate versus like according to what you want to do. Everyone's goal is very different. And so we have to think about what are we allocating our energy to? And what happens is that we're busy. We get to the end of the day and we can feel very much like we were busy all day long, but we weren't productive. And if that's hitting right now, chances are you are not allocating your energy from that luxury item mentality. We are giving it to things that can't afford it. And we have to really pay attention to it. This is something that I've called procrastinating before. And other people obviously use that word too. But the idea here is that we can be taking on tasks in our life that feel like work because technically it falls into that bucket, but it's not correlated to the goal that we're saying to other people that we want to achieve. So here's an example, because I think that's going to make it click a little bit more. If your goal is to launch a podcast and you're like, yeah, I definitely wanted to do that this year. So many people say this, like, I'm going to start my podcast this year. Well, we're in September now, and have you done it yet? Right? That's like one of those things. Or anything it could be. But if you wanted to launch your podcast this year, recording your first episode or first few episodes, that's a luxury task. Absolutely. Now, spending hours in Canva fiddling with the cover art, that's a cheap task. It's a cheap task before you record those first few episodes because you are telling yourself you're doing something towards the podcast, but you're not. You're procrastinating. You're putting off what you actually have to do, which is record the first few episodes, because that's way harder than fiddling around on Canva. Let's be honest. I'm just here to give you the compassion and all the love of like, you needed to hear it, but we all do it. There's no shame in this. We all do this. I do this all the time. We just have to catch ourselves in that procrastinating habit of, well, I know this is a cheap task versus a luxury task. And we have to really look at that. And one of my clients, Amy, she was recently on the podcast, and you could hear her story. If you go back and listen to her for her episode, I'll make sure to link it in the show notes. And she said that she actually signed on with me as a client because of one thing that I said in a news article or a news feature that I was in. And she said, Amanda, you said as women, we tend to add to our plate without subtracting anything. She was like, I knew I wanted to work with you because that's what I needed to do. And so I'm bringing it back here to this quote from Taylor Swift that says we have to think about our energy as luxury and not everyone can afford it. And I'm taking it back to the task. Not every task can afford your energy. And so what I want you to do is to start thinking about this in terms of doing an energy audit. Now, if you want to know how frequently you need to do this, it just depends. You can do this weekly. You can do it daily if you're in a cycle of like, I really need to stay on top of this. But you know the frequency that you need to do. If you're not sure, let's just do one day at a time and see what it looks like for you. And then you can stretch it out to a week, something like that. So step number 1 is to track. You really have to look at everything that you're doing. You know, when you work with like a nutritionist or a fitness coach of some kind, and they say, I need you to write down everything you eat in a day. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, I'm going to change some habits. That's not what I need you to do. I need you to be really honest about what you have done. Let's say you're listening to this midday. Write down what you have done this morning and write it all down. You don't have to get like granular with this, but you really want to think about, what did I spend my time doing? Now, the benefit is if you can look at your calendar and see what meetings you've had, or if you're using a project management tool, you can look at it and you can export a list of the things that you're doing. So this is why I really encourage people to use some sort of something, because then you know what you did. It's not a guess. You can just export that list. I even have some of my clients do that. There's a few of them that we look at it in terms of like, if they're feeling really overwhelmed, like I'm busy, but I'm not productive, and they can't nail down what it is, we'll look at a list of what they've actually done. So step number 1 is to track things. You have to do that, whether you're recalling it from memory, which is kind of a risky move, but you can do it for one day. And then you look at everything. Okay, you've got it all listed out. No shame, no guilt. We're just looking at the reality. Step number 2 is to label the thing. So you're going to label it as either luxury or cheap. And this is going to be hard. I'm just going to be honest with you. This is the part where you have to be very honest with yourself. There's no one looking at this paper but you. And if you're really brave and you want to make sure you really get into this, have a friend sit down with you and have them ask you questions. Is that really something that works towards your goal? Or you have to tell them what your goal is. If you're working with a coach or a therapist, this is a great thing to bring to them. Look at it together, because that coach or that therapist can ask those questions. And I'm using the terms luxury and cheap to go with that quote from Taylor Swift, but I'm not saying that something is a cheap task. Like, it may actually cost you money, but here's the thing. It's costing you your time. Your time is the most precious resource you have. And so you need to really start thinking about this of, is this a luxury thing or is this a cheap thing that I'm doing? And be really, really, really honest about what it is. And remember, it's got to be connected to the goal you're trying to achieve. Then step 3 is adjust. You're going to look at your list and make a shift for the next day. So if you're just doing this for today, right, you looked at your morning and then you're going to do it again at the afternoon, and you look at it and you adjust for the next day. And guess what? You get to course correct. It's wonderful. You're not behind. You're just taking information and doing even better tomorrow. That's all we're doing. And so adjusting according to what you're trying to do. So I want to give another example, because I think sometimes we just have to hear different types of examples. And so let's say you want to land a new client. I don't care what kind of client it is. Let's say you're like, I need to fill a gap that, one client rolled off and I need to find someone else. A luxury task would be sending an email to past clients asking for referrals. Sending the email is the luxury task. The cheap task is making a list of people and thinking about sending the email. And I know that hurts when I say it, because making the list is a lot easier than sending the email. And I get it. But you and I both know that if you think about that list, you're not gaining any referrals. If you send the email, you may or may not, but you have to make the ask. So you've got to do it. So looking at your task with a very honest and non-judgmental lens, looking at all the tasks you're doing and saying, is this luxury or is this a cheap task? So let's come back to that quote from the lovely Taylor Swift. And it went viral for a reason. It went viral because it really resonated. Chances are you remember that. You saw that happening, whether someone shared it on Instagram and you saw it or whatever, and you were like, ooh, that hits. That hits hard. And I want you to take that, not just for your energy in terms of who gets your energy, but what gets your energy in your day-to-day life. And here's the thing. When you heard her say that your energy is a luxury and not everyone can afford it, and we have to think about it in that way, chances are you did exactly what I did. It hit you, you kept walking, maybe took a note in your phone, and you moved on. did you do anything with it? Did you do anything with that information? And I want you to really be honest with yourself. Did you think about it the next time someone was criticizing you and you were like, man, Taylor can handle that criticism? And she talked through like, they don't deserve my energy because my energy is expensive. And what a valuable lesson that is, because Taylor is busier than any of us are ever going to be. And Taylor is going to receive more criticism online than any of us can ever imagine. And that it's so fascinating to think about. If she can handle that and has had support, it's clear that she said, my therapist told me this, and she's had that support, let's learn from her, because thankfully, you and I are not going to receive that level of criticism. I'm not saying someone's words won't hurt, but we're not going to get the level that she is at. And so if she can think about this with that frame of mind, let's learn from her. Let's learn from her and say, I can do this too. And not only just from a criticism standpoint, but also where am I giving my energy in my work? If I said I wanted to do something, because that's why you're here. You're listening to the Accountable podcast because you want to achieve a goal. No one's listening to this that are like, I don't care what I do. You're listening to this because you're like, I want to follow through. I want to feel proud of my progress. And so if you are feeling that, you have to protect your energy and you have to think about it like the luxury item that means something to you. Everyone has a different idea of what luxury is, so what it means to you. And the way in which you can do this is not just by listening to me, but by taking action. You have to do that energy audit. I need you to do this. Please, please, please. Don't just listen to this episode and do nothing. I beg of you not to do that. All it takes is a few minutes. You can do this on your own. Of course, you can get support if you want it. I'd love to work with you if I feel like a good fit for you, or find a biz bestie or, a trusted friend. But do it. You can even do this on your own. So remember, step number 1 is tracking things. So writing things down. What have I done today? Number 2 is doing the audit and labeling things of luxury or cheap. And 3 is adjusting as you move forward. So you can actually make change in real time. So I'd love to hear what you think about this. How are you going to treat your energy like the luxury item that it is? I would love to hear from you if you'd like to share with me how you think about this and how you're going to move forward, and what those luxury items are on your task list and what the cheap items are too. We have to do them all, but maybe not all at the same level or with the same intensity. We have to really think about what is going to move the needle forward. What is going to actually help me achieve the goal? I know there's some admin things we have to do, but chances are you're probably doing more projects that are just nice to haves versus the things that are actually going to move you forward. So if you'd like to work with me, you can always check out the ways we can work together on my website. It's amandamckinney.com/work with me. I'd love to hear from you. And until next time, I hope that you do this energy audit and really protect your energy, knowing that it is the luxury item that you're thinking of right now. Treat it that way and keep being accountable.